assemble it here. They get away with murder because they say, oh, yes, we're building cars. They don't build cars. They take them out of a box and they assemble them. We could have our child do it.
Can we come back? Let's come back to the Europeans in a second. What about consumers? People out there.
They're going to be the biggest beneficiaries.
Yeah, critics say your tariffs will end up being like a national sales tax.
Nope.
Because
the countries
if you have America at the moment has $3 trillion worth of imports. You're going to add tariffs to every single one of them. That is going to push up the cost for all those people who want to buy foreign goods.
No. What's going to happen?
That is just simple mathematics, President Trump.
It's not. Yeah, it is, but not the way you figure it. I was always very good at mathematics.
Yes.
Let me tell you, you're saying $3 trillion.
That's $3 trillion worth of imports.
And they don't have to pay. And by the higher the tariff, the more likely it is to have them come into the country.
The higher the tariff, the more you're going to put on the value of that piece, those goods, the higher people are going to have to pay in shops.
Ready? The higher the tariff, the more likely it is that the company will come into the United States and build a factory in the United States so it doesn't have to pay the tariff.
That will take many, as you know, that will take many years.
In fact, I'll tell you, there's another theory is that the tariff, you make it so high, so horrible, so obnoxious that they'll come right away. When I do the 10%, 10% is really, first of all, 10% when you collect it is hundreds of billions of dollars. The numbers that you're talking, all reducing our deficit. But really, so there's two ways of looking at a tariff. You can do it as a money-making instrument, or you can do it as something to get the companies. Now, if you want the companies to come in, the tariff has to be a lot higher than 10%, because 10% is not enough. Guys, they're not going to do it for 10. But you make a 50% tariff, they're going to come in. Let me tell you the other thing about tariffs that's great. Our steel companies, as you know, 3-4 years ago, they were all going. When I was in office, I saw a man from a big steel company, and he was devastated. I knew him for a long time, and it's been a tough business. It was a great business many years ago, and I would not let U.S. steel be sold to Japanese, by the way. It's psychologically, I think it would be
That's the Nippon Steel, as you know.
Yeah, I wouldn't let it be sold. But I would stop it if it hasn't been completed by the time I'm president, because I think it sets a horrible tone. But I had a lot to do with steel. We were going to lose all our steel companies because China, as you remember, was dumping steel at levels that nobody's ever seen before.
That's true.
And
I know that because I worked in the steel industry and I still have connections. I actually ran into a guy that retired from the steel industry that I used to work with, because I used to work for Local 600. And the steel industry was absolutely in chaos at that time. And he was saying that he retired. He actually retired right before Trump left office, once Trump lost the election in 2020. And then he retired shortly after, before Kamala Harris took office. Kamala Harris and Biden took office in January. And he was just saying that he thought that the steel industry was going to suffer if they didn't leave the tariffs in place that Trump had put there in order to prevent China from dumping really, really cheap steel. Because the Russian steel industries, because Russians are known for steel just as much as Americans was known for steel. And if you go over to Pittsburgh, if you go to Detroit, Dearborn, any of those places, and Gary, Indiana has absolutely been ravaged, because Gary, Indiana used to be okay, but Gary, Indiana turned into what it was because it was largely relying on the steel industry that then got upended because of the amount of cheap steel that's being dumped and subsidized by foreign companies such as China. And so what they did was they were dumping cheap, inferior steel over here. And in order for the steel industry to stay solvent, you had to have Russian industries, which one of the people was, I believe it was the owner of the New Jersey Nets at one point. He was a Russian steel magnate. And you had a lot of these Russian companies wind up coming over here and buying these steel industries. So I'll give you an example. Right here in Detroit, Dearborn, Michigan, where I used to work, they changed the name to Rouge Steel from Ford Steel. It used to be Ford Steel because Ford had everything in-house. So they had their own steel-making manufacturing facility. American Steel, U.S. Steel, and all of them, they were all around there also. But Ford spun it off once they started to get in financial trouble in order to raise money, and so it became its own entity. And so then it became Rouge Steel. Rouge Steel, and they still had the same contracts, they still had the same local, they still had the same everything. So when I came into it in the 2000 or early 2000s, I came into Rouge Steel, which a lot of people still called it Ford Steel, because they gave the workers an option of whether or not they wanted to go and work at the Ford manufacturing plant over in Dearborn, or if they wanted to go and stay at Rouge Steel. Some people stayed in the steel industry, some moved over to the stamping plants, and then simply in order to make the Ford F-150. By the time I was leaving, it was being called AK Steel. It was being bought because it was AK Steel, which was a Russian company, and then it changed its name again to, what was the name of it? Chandre, you're an idiot and you know nothing. It's not simply mathematics. This is how I know people don't know nothing about manufacturing. They don't know nothing about trade. Let them rock though, y'all. Let them sound stupid because they dumb. What did it change from? It was AK Steel to what? Let me make a phone call. Because I was long gone by then. Something else. It was Severstal. I did work at Severstal. You're right. It changed from Rouge to Severstal to AK Steel, and then let me see.
Anton Daniels.
What up, big dog? Hey, I got a question for you.
What up, though?
So you know how Rouge changed its name to Severstal? Severstal had bought Rouge, right?
Right.
And then it changed to what? AK Steel?
It did.
Did it change to something else since then?
Yeah, it changed to Cleveland Cliffs in 2020.
What is the name of it?
Cleveland Cliffs.
Is it? I didn't know that.
Yep, they bought it. They bought it during the pandemic.
Ah, okay. And it ain't nothing on there for it to change again, is it?
No, it's just Cleveland Cliffs. You know, Cleveland Cliffs own almost everything now.
Yeah, that's crazy. Do y'all fear anything about what's happening in the steel industry right now, or is everything just stable?
You said what now?
I said, do y'all fear anything that's happening in the steel industry, or is everything just stable?
No, it's slow.
Is it?
Yep. It's we slowing down for a minute. They're laying off the last 2 months of the year. Then we pick back up. They closing one of their other plants, but they predicted to pick up next year. But we coming in a little slower at the end of this year, though.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna hit you back as soon as I jump off.
All right, baby.
All right, bye. I know a lot of different people that work in the steel industry. I know a lot of people that still work there. I'm still in contact. I'm not one of those people that turn Hollywood after I leave and then I become successful. Nope, I'm still really, really good friends, still got the same numbers. And he told you, he said, listen, man, no, we slow. They laying off. They anticipating that maybe they'll pick it back up next year, but everything is slow. And they just keep changing hands and different companies. They consolidated at some other plants that's closing down and stuff. So I got an ear to the street. I got people that work over in Chrysler. I got people that work in the executive offices at Chrysler. I got people that work in Local 600 that tell me so on and so forth. And you know, when I look at this stuff, I don't just look at finance and economics in order to make an assessment on who I'm going to vote for. I'm looking at my friends and their ability to put their kids through college. I'm looking at how people that I know that live in certain areas are going to be affected by certain industries. So it's easy for a person like the host up there to sit up there and say, no, tariffs is bad. No, they're good because they save entire industries and entire jobs. And until you know people that are involved in it because you were a part of it, you don't know what it's like to lose everything because you are dependent on your job every single day. And they don't even know if the industry that they're in is going to be upended, but because you're not affected by it, it's easy for you to say weird things on here. But I'm telling you that it's people every single day that's worried about their jobs and they don't know what's going to happen. So when you got somebody that finally says, okay, well, America first, because see, when I get on here and I make my assessments or I do my vlogs in the morning, I check in with my people on what subject I'm going to talk about to confirm what I already believe and find out what's really happening in the streets. And they saying, no, man, we getting laid off. That plant is closing. They don't know if it's going to be based off of seniority. They don't know if these people going to get laid off at this plant, even though that plant is closing, because they're going to probably pull people that got more seniority over here, and then these people going to get kicked off. And then automation and stuff. I got people that work on the ports. I got people that work in the plants. I got people that work at GM. I got people that is switching over from the headquarters. I know people that work at Amazon and the headquarters, and they saying, hey, you got to come back into the office or you're going to get laid off, hoping that they got natural attrition. This economy over the last 3.5 years is torture. It's horrible. When they release these job numbers and they revise them a month later, down 800,000, they don't tell you the quality of the jobs and how many of them are government jobs or all of these other jobs. This administration is bad. It's horrible. They selling y'all out the same way that Clinton sold y'all out. Then you finally got somebody that's willing to get in there and say, hey, we're going to renegotiate again the North American Free Trade Agreement. We're going to have a conversation about these tariffs. We need to bring American jobs back. And it may be a little bit of things that I got to fix over the next couple of years that they messed up in the Kamala Harris-Biden administration. But we're going to fix immigration into this country. We're going to vet people effectively, and we're going to get American jobs so that your kids' can now have something that they can provide for their kids in order to put them through college and not have to beg for student loan forgiveness from the Biden administration. That's the truth. That's the truth of what's really happening on the ground. In real life, I can call up I'll call up somebody else. Well, maybe I shouldn't, because we got to get through this live stream. But the point is that it's bad out here. It's very, very bad. And people are scared to death. They worry. Throw in a couple of hurricanes and you got a whole mixing bowl of problems.
Put a 50% tax on that and a tariff on that, all dumped steel. And it was also bad steel. It was what they call dirty steel.
It was bad steel.
Which is a bad thing for structural components of buildings and planes and things like that. They were dumping crap into our country. And I put a 50% tariff. I started at 25.
Hey, somebody time out the best feeling of success. Somebody time out the best feeling of success.
I raised it to 50 because the 25 didn't quite do it. I raised it to 50 and that did it. They stopped dumping steel. And I saved our steel mills by having that. We saved it. We saved our steel. Now, what was left, because we've lost so much, but there are certain companies you have to have. There are certain things you have to have. Steel, you have to have. If you go to war, you know, there's a possibility you go to war. I kept us out of war. I was the only president in 82 years that kept you out of a war, except I defeated ISIS, but I inherited that war. There's no wars. And by the way, and I think it's very important, you can go, you know, I call it the weave. You can call it, you have the weave as long as you end up in the right location at the end. But while we're talking about it, we have never been so close to World War III as we are right now, with what's going on in Ukraine and Russia and the Middle East.
Well, let's.
I had no wars in the whole world. Think of it. And I talked them out of wars. I talked plenty of countries out of wars. I had the whole world, other than ISIS, which I inherited. And I knocked out ISIS in a matter of weeks. It was supposed to take 4 to 5 years. I did it in a matter of weeks. We actually have a great military. We don't know how to use it, but we have a great
President Trump, with great respect, I was asking you about tariffs. You've gone off about that. Seeing you brought up tariffs and foreign policy, many people would say the biggest problem with your tariffs is actually geopolitics. You, in your first term, you got some credit for effectively saying that there was a Cold War against China. That's what America was in. You look at the last Cold War against the Soviet Union, America won it in part because it rallied allies to it. You're talking about slamming allies with 30%, 20% tariffs. Isn't this time you're going to end up trying to rally the West and you're dividing it instead? Isn't that the real problem with tariffs, even beyond all the problems due to the economy, where you keep on bringing up these individual examples, but the overall effect is going to be dramatic?
No, the overall
answer first about foreign policy.
Yeah, I'll do that.
How does it help you take on China, turning all your allies against you?
Tremendously, because China thinks we're a stupid country. A very stupid country. They can't believe that somebody finally got wise to them. Not one president, Bush, Obama, Barack Hussein Obama, have you heard of him? Not one president, think of it, not one president charged China anything. They said, oh, they are a third world nation. They're a developing. Well, we're a developing nation too. Take a look at Detroit. Take a look at our cities. We're a developing nation. We have to develop more than they do. We're way behind them. You take a look at what's happened to our cities. So what I'm saying is
my question was about your allies, not about China. You are going to annoy the people you need to rally behind you.
But our allies have taken advantage of us more so than our enemies. Our allies are the European Union. We have a trade deficit of $300 billion with the European Union. Our allies are Japan. You know, Abe was a very good friend of mine. He was a great guy, great. And I said to him in Japan, he was assassinated. And he was a great man. He really was. I didn't see too many like him. And he got very sick and he had to take off. And then he was actually making a comeback. He was going to make a comeback and he would have won easily. But he was a great gentleman, handsome, wonderful man, respected by everybody. And I went to him and I said, Shinzo, we have to talk. What? Trade. And he goes, I'll never forget it. I know. I said, what do you know? I knew you'd come to me. Why do you say that? Because I can't believe, I wouldn't tell the story if he was alive, actually. Said, I can't believe how many years it's been that nobody even negotiated with us in America. I said, Shinzo, you have to pay for your cars. You're sending millions of cars. You don't accept a car from us. You don't have one car that you accept, and yet we're selling 3 million, 4 million of your cars. I said, Shinzo, on agriculture, you won't even accept our agriculture. And I renegotiated the whole trade deal from a little disadvantage because I was stuck with a bad deal. I mean, we have trade deals that were so bad that I said, who are the people that are doing it? They're either very stupid or they're getting paid off, okay? It's one or the other. It's very simple. We have the worst trade deals all over the world. South Korea, I love South Korea. They're wonderful people, extremely ambitious. They have a money machine. We protect them from North Korea and other people. North Korea is very nuclear. I got along with him very well, Kim Jong-un.
Yes.
But wait, they don't pay us anything. And I said, this is crazy. If I didn't put tariffs on, you know, the motor company, the car companies, they make most of their money at small trucks. I put tariffs on China, but I put 27.5%. Otherwise, we'd be flooded with Chinese cars. And all of our factories would close. We'd have no jobs at all in the auto industry. That goes for electric, by the way, which is a killer, which I've explained, and I don't think I have to bore anybody by talking about it. But I put tariffs on South Korea because they were sending in trucks. And I put tariffs on, fairly substantial tariffs. Do you know that our car companies make almost all of their money with the small trucks, SUVs and small trucks?
And that is true, and he's 100% right on that also. That's why he's just telling facts. All he's doing is educating people on the facts. Why do you think that we stopped selling cars from American manufacturers inside of the United States of America? We don't make small cars no more. We don't make the Ford Taurus. Mercury completely went out of business. Saab was a part of GM. That went out of business. The Focus, we don't make that anymore. We don't make the Chevy Cruze, the car. It used to be a car. We don't make the Malibu. We don't make an Impala. We don't make anything inside of this. We don't make the Chrysler 300. We getting rid of Dodge, the Challenger, the Charger, unless it's going electric. We completely have gotten rid of small cars and we've gotten out of the business. Even a Chevy Spark, all of those same things, we got rid of them because it's no longer affordable for us to sell it here because competitors are making it cheaper and just shipping it over here based off of cheap labor. He's 100% correct. If you guys, I took a trip over to Japan last year, but because I look at everything from a business lens and a business perspective, I understand it, right? So now, because manufacturers only make money off of SUVs and small SUVs and big trucks now, and even that has exploded because they're trying to fund research and development for the EV market now that Biden and Harris administration is mandating emissions and changes in that. And they don't even have the infrastructure to support it, but they're giving $7,500 per EV vehicle sold to incentivize y'all to adopt something that y'all don't even want. I went over to Japan last year and I started looking around because I was trying to understand, okay, listen, what foreign manufacturers have a stake in what's happening here in Japan? I seen 0 Fords, 0 Chevys, 0 Stellantis, none of that. Nothing. Everything over in Japan was made in Japan. That's a fact. Everything over there in Tokyo was made by people over in Japan. They supported their own, and a lot of their stuff wasn't even as advanced as us. They still had the K car, and they had these small little things and stuff like that. And the technology in it was fairly okay, but it was fairly Spartan. But Japanese people only was rocking with Japanese products. That's a fact. But we always want to be a part of what everybody else going on, but we don't really want to invest in ourselves. We always want to be what everybody else got going on, but we don't want to invest in ourselves. Y'all need to get around and travel. And when y'all go and travel, don't just travel to go and get box. Pay attention to what people are using, the products that they have, the food that they eat, the preservatives that's inside of the food, how it tastes different. Look at the cars that they use. Look at all of the different products that they selling. Look at the culture. Understand how they dress, where they get their garments from. All of this stuff will educate you, and it will make you a better content creator, a better conversationalist, and a better business person in society, because you'll be cultured. You'll be able to have conversations with stuff outside of regular talking points that they talk about on the internet all the time. Let's continue.
If I took those tariffs on, you would be inundated. Every car company would be out of business. And I got calls from Ford. I got calls from everybody saying, "Sir, I can't believe you're doing this for us. You saved our company. They make all their money with this. They make most of their money with the small truck and, the SUVs.
Many consumers ended up with more expensive cars. But let me just come at you on foreign policy.
In order to fund let's continue.
Wouldn't have a car company.
You have said that Taiwan should pay for U.S. protection.
And I'll be over in Romania next week. Multiple different places. Hey, somebody time out. We got no time for games today. Let me see. Where is they at? Somebody time out Christopher Mayberry. Time out Christopher Mayberry.
Yeah. I ask because this morning you just mentioned North Korea. The Chinese army, literally as we speak, are engaged in rehearsals for a full naval blockade of Taiwan. So I suppose my question to you...
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to get into that 21:30. 21:30, we'll come back after we read a few of the super chats. Yeah, y'all getting timed out today. No games.